Welcome to Pyrolytical.com's Call for Freedom. This episode of the Call for Freedom is brought to you by Dreamwire.net, your source for turbocharged web hosting services. This episode of the Call for Freedom was previously recorded on October 20th, 2009.
Hello everyone, this is the Call for Freedom for October 20th, 2009. We want to welcome all of you Americans who have dialed in. This is presented by the Call for Freedom Network. Check us out on Facebook. We have a nice group that's slowly growing there, and we're excited about that. We also, if you want to be emailed reminders of this call every week, just message us through that group there, and we'll send you reminders. Tonight, as we've changed our format, we're going to just jump right into it, Randall. We change our format every week. We have a specific thing we focus on. Tonight is one of our favorites, Randall especially, economics. We know we have a couple callers who love economics as well. Tonight, our economic concept is going to be presented by Randall Hinton, and he's going to teach us some concepts which, well, let's be honest, most Americans aren't familiar with. So with no further ado, I give you Randall Hinton. Randall, enlighten us.
So here we are, the fragrant stink of inflation, the intoxicating practice of destroying the dollar. Nice little image there for you, the dollar on fire. What is inflation? Let's have a definition, shall we? This is a definition from Wikipedia. In economics, inflation is a rise in the general level of prices and goods and services in an economy over a period of time. When the price level rises, each unit of currency buys fewer goods and services. Now, that first sentence, to me, doesn't define it at all. And I almost said, this is perfectly absurd. But then, you read on. Consequently, inflation is also an erosion of the purchasing power of money. Well, that's ultimately what it is. It's the erosion of the purchasing power that leads to the fact that the prices go up because the purchasing power has been reduced. A loss of real value in the internal medium of exchange unit of account in the economy. The chief measure of the price inflation is the inflation rate, the annualized percentage change in a general price index, normally the consumer price index over time. Now, there's a lot of reading there. Well, let's look at the equation. You got to know the equation. And we'll see that I, or inflation, equals CPI, or Consumer Price Index this year, minus Consumer Price Index last year, over Consumer Price Index last year. This is the supposed equation to figure out inflation. But, that gets kind of complicated. You'd think the average individual has got to have an economics degree in order to just, figure out, hey, what's going on? How do I figure out how inflation is going to impact me as an individual? This is Tom, John, and Ben, we'll say. If the effect of inflation doesn't require dollars. Here we have, this basic scenario where each of these individuals has an apple. Now, because this, on this slide, is their only supposed, possession, be it their unit of currency or be it, everything they own in this apple, they value it highly. And as a result, they don't end up exchanging it a lot. They hold on to it, they save it, and they only use it when it's absolutely necessary. We're going to add a whole bunch of apples to Tom, John, and Ben's little piles here. And this kind of illustrates how, when you get a whole load of these apples, this is inflation for these individuals in their realm of apples, because all of a sudden that one apple just doesn't matter as much as it used to, because I've got a lot. And so as a result, whereas before I wouldn't have exchanged that single apple that I valued a whole bunch for I would have only traded it if I was going to get something that I really valued in exchange. I might consider risking a few of my apples now because I've got a whole bunch of them. So John and Tom and Ben may just exchange apples like crazy. And one more click. So the value of each individual apple declines as the supply increases. So as the supply increases, and if we have a bumper crop of apples, people just don't value them as much. They may throw them out only eating half of it instead of eating the whole thing. So how does that relate to your wallet? Enough with the apples already. Here is our money supply. We have $10 bills. And we'll just say this is the money supply of the United States, $10. Now, we value that a certain amount, and there's a process that we go through in the economy. See that we have the government coming in to the economy and taking out taxes. We've got a 10% tax rate, so $1 goes to the government. Now, the government wants to be able to, pay for all these benefits and programs and whatnot. So how does it do it? If it's only got $1, but it's going to cost it $2 in order to fund a whole bunch of programs, I'm being really simplistic here. There's a lot of detail we could go into, but we're just going to get through an overview of this tonight. So the government takes this $1, and then they say, we need to spend $2, and we're going to create a new dollar out of thin air. We're going to spend that money back into the economy. And then we see that we've increased our money supply from $10 to $11. Now, that's an increase of 10% in the economy. We go through that a few times. We've got a much larger money supply. We've got a pile of cash. And so effectively, we've devalued those $10 because we've increased the money supply to a significant point where, in this illustration, we've gone from $10 to, these are $100 bills and a pile of $100 bills. So we've increased the money supply a huge amount, and that has a significant impact on the individual. This is a graph, but if I have more money, I'm better off, right? Well, you may feel that way, but this is a graph that shows a comparison between the purchasing power of the dollar since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. Started in 1913, on our yellow line, we've got the dollar, buying $1's worth, and then going on down the line, a little bit of fluctuation up to 1920, down to 1940, and then continuing up to about 1970, and shortly after that time, we had the decoupling of the dollar from gold completely. We had a complete fiat currency introduced. And so as a result, we see the purchasing power of the dollar have this steady decline until in 2008, it would take $21.78 to purchase what you could purchase with $1 in 1913. And then conversely, we have the blue line, which shows the relative value of the dollar. So the dollar being worth $1 in 1913 and declining over time to where in 2008 is only worth 5, and now you'd wonder whether it's in between 3 and 4 cents, or purchase 3 or 4 cents worth of what it could in 1913. And that could be kind of you think on one hand, hey, I feel really good because I'm making more money than my parents ever made, when they were my age, or my grandparents. They didn't make hardly anything compared with me. I got a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year salary, and I've got this big house that's worth a couple $100,000, and I've got this car worth $50,000, and I've got all this really cool stuff. And we tend to, as humans, just look at the dollar amount, and we relate the dollar amount back to our parents and our grandparents, and we, without really probing, we don't look at the fact that, hey, wait a second, I may have $80,000 a year, but if I figure out the difference for inflation, you know what? I may not be even making as much as my my grandparents were making at $1,000 a year, or $2,000 or $3,000 a year.